Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I am your host as always. You are on the Revive Stronger channel. We are going over our takeaway points from Shelby Starnes, episode 138. Great interview with Shelby. Let's go over those takeaway points. Takeaway point number one is that before competing, you want to make sure you've got a great foundation. Now, the size of that foundation depends on the category that you're going to compete in. For bodybuilding, you're going to want a large foundation. That might require 2 to 4 years of consistent, high-quality training. Whereas for men's physique, for bikini, maybe it's 1 to 2 years. So just have a think about that before you step on stage. And don't leave it too long. Don't just wait forever to compete so that you're going to win or go pro. Because by competing, you learn a lot in the process. So don't just leave it to never competing until you feel like you're going to win. Compete when you think you have a good chance and can be competitive in the category you want to, and you can learn along the way. Takeaway point number 2 is that there's somewhat of a sweet spot in your off season where you're eating plenty of food and seeing very productive training, and so that you're making great improvements and have a great base to then cut down from when you come in to do a show, but that you don't take it so far that you're eating so much food, getting so over fat that your cutting phase for your prep will become very, very difficult. So try and land within this sweet spot within your off season for the most productive gains. Takeaway point number 3 is that Shelby has found some people do better on higher fats, lower carbs. Other people do better on higher carbs, lower fat. Protein is always somewhat of a given for him, but different clients respond differently to these. So it might be worth experimenting. If you're on a high carb diet with low fats and you feel amazing, maybe you don't need to experiment. But if you don't feel that great, or if you really just want to try out a different approach, then you can do that. When you're in a position where you're very lean, this becomes much more obvious, and you do want to give it a period of time so you actually can assess things. Takeaway point number 4 is Shelby thinks it's a very good idea to practice your peak week before you run a given peak week. Because lots of things are happening. You might want to just trial something before you try an extreme approach for stage, because you could end up really risking something that's just not worth it and bringing around a worse physique than what you wanted. You want to try and bring about that nice full physique without that sloppiness, without that spillover, and you want to contain that dryness. So maybe a worth idea to practice your peak weeks before you go ahead and do one. Takeaway point number 5 is that Shelby does like to use cardio in his fat loss phases. However, he thinks it's very prudent to start off with the minimal dose and then maybe escalate it throughout a prep, not starting out with tons of cardio from the get-go. Our favorite quote from Shelby is that individualization, individual factors are actually a bigger difference than someone who's unassisted versus assisted. There's much inter-individual differences within each of those. So remember that, guys. So, hope you've enjoyed these takeaway points. Please, as always, give us a like, give us a comment, give us a subscribe, share this with your friends, and we'll catch you soon. Revive Stronger.